Cavinder, and this is a monthly series, as we said last time, and so we appreciate you watching again, and we want to continue to expand on what we learned last time. And so the goal in these first 3 videos, this is the second of 3, a series here, is to discuss gaining access or control of this horse's body. So just a little refresher about what we talked about last time, and we discussed kind of the basics of training, which is providing a cue, waiting for a response, and then based on the response of the horse, reinforcing that. And so I'm sure you've had time to practice that with your horse. And last time we talked about gaining access to the face and making sure that we had a horse that wanted to give to the bit. And all those things are important, again, as we get into some of the future things like bridling and suppling the horse. This is all going to come back to memory for him and for you. But we want to expand on what we did last time, and so today what we're going to do is start discussing how we're going to get control of probably the most important piece of this horse, and this is the shoulder. You know, a lot of people think too that their hands control everything. In reality, my hands kind of only control what I see or they're in front of them, and that's about 30% of the horse. My legs and my hands combine to some degree, but mainly my legs are going to control everything behind my hand. So this shoulder is kind of a complementary piece. I can work my hand and control this shoulder, and I should also be able to utilize my leg to control the shoulder as well. Next week, we're going to put it all together with the hip, and we'll see how the leg is really an important piece there. As we go into discussion of this, we'll talk about some problems a horse may pose. We'll talk about some tips that can help you as a rider get to where you want to be. And so we'll kind of go through those as we go. But what we want to do first is, again, we're walking this horse around. And last time we talked about just showing the horse where to go with our hand and remembering that the horse goes where my hand goes. So if I point my hand this way, the horse should go that way. And if I push it back here, then he should start to tighten this circle up a little bit. And if he don't, like he doesn't there, we'll remind him where to put his nose. And he should start to tighten the circle up because my hand is pointing back a little bit. And there he goes. And then we release, and he's doing what we want. But we have to get control of this shoulder as well. So as I said before, when we're walking this nose around, we talked about problems that come up. One of the problems that comes up, we said, was the horse drops his shoulder to the inside, or maybe this horse leans to the outside this way as I'm asking him to follow around with his body. That's kind of that lack of shoulder control that we're going to discuss today. And one of the ways that we can fix that is by making sure that we maintain momentum and keep the horse pushing and moving forward. If he's bowing in or out, and I just simply take my legs and tap him forward, the shoulders have to kind of come in line and follow him up. And so that's where we're going today with kind of some other things to do. I want to reinforce that as well. I'm going to walk a straight line coming back to you. And one of the things I do a lot of is, as I'm walking a straight line, I'm going to ask this horse to flex to one side. So here we're walking to the camera, and we're asking this horse to walk a straight line while he keeps flexed like that, and then we release. I'll come back the other direction and kind of show you to the right. And it's not just my hands here. Remember that I'm not just utilizing my hand to do this. This is a whole lot of leg to get this horse to walk straight with his body, but to keep his head bent to the right here. We'll keep his body moving forward, tracking forward, head to the right, and then we'll come back around. So you can see how he wanted to wiggle a little bit out of line, but my legs are what keeps his horse driving forward. If I can tip his nose to the right or to the left and keep his body in line, that tells me that I have some shoulder control. Again, we're going straight. We tip this way, kind of fades off, use our leg, let go of our hand, then our leg. That leg is letting him know that he has to stay in a line. He has to give to the leg there. So while my hand is telling his face to come this way, my leg is telling that body to keep walking forward. So it's a combination of things that I'm doing and asking this horse to go someplace with my hand, but also making sure that I stabilize or block off his body and keep his body in a line. So don't forget the leg as well. People a lot of times think about the leg as just being an aid to make this horse go. It's definitely not. It's a cue to kind of block things off. So if I don't use my leg, I walk him to you here, or walk away from you even. Walking away from you, I don't use my leg, and I just tip his nose to the inside. He simply follows around. But if I add my leg, I'll straighten the body back out right there and ask him to go forward. To advance upon that, I'm going to start to add more difficult things to this, and so I'll begin with what we learned the first video, and that is walking a circle, nose to the inside. And then what I'm simply going to do is ask him to maintain this position, but to track to the opposite direction. So maintain this position while tracking left. Get the body to turn around that way. The nose is still tipped to the right. He gives and follows through, so I'll let go. Tip his nose back to this direction. Change the position of my hand because my horse goes where my hand goes. The front end comes around. Let go. So I'm just getting this horse to be really soft and to guide off of the direction I'm asking him to go without maybe changing up his face too much. Now you might say, well, I would never want my horse to turn around, arc to the opposite direction. Well, I wouldn't either. But what I'm teaching this horse to do is to maintain the position I've asked him to be in terms of his shape, but also to raise his shoulder up and guide where I need him to guide. So for instance, if you're into barrel racing or reining or anything like that where you maintain or have to keep that horse in a position, if in order to get this horse to go that direction when I'm tracking to the right, I have to take his nose and drag out, you can see the shape of his body changes. But if I'm asking this horse to turn a circle around a barrel, but he drops his shoulder and I want to maintain this shape, but to get his shoulder up, I can simply use my leg, guide that shoulder back up. Or same thing for a reiner that's running a set of circles and maybe the horse is falling or drifting to the inside. Instead of having to lose the shape and drag this nose back to the outside or the perimeter of the circle, I can very simply keep the shape of the circle while using my inside leg to bump this shoulder back up and get this horse to move back to the perimeter of my circle. So shoulder control is very important. If you don't want to go to maybe that advanced of a maneuver, you can more simply maybe start with just walking forward and asking the horse to maybe two-track up a bit. So I keep the nose over here to the left a little bit, but I'm maintaining forward. Look at his feet, they're crossing over to the right. And that's the same kind of move that I'm asking for in that kind of pivot kind of move. So the pivot's a little more advanced, whereas this two-track is a little less advanced and maybe a good place to start. Problems that may come up, especially when you get to the point that you're trying to make this horse turn around or pivot kind of tight, so I keep the hip in the same spot, but I'm asking this front end to come around. Problems that may incur would be things like your horse stops on you and doesn't want to maintain forward motion. That's pretty simple, pretty common type of thing that happens, and it's probably one of two things. One, your horse is kind of second guessing what you're asking him to do, and so his answer from your cue is to simply stop. And that's a very simple fix. You keep your hands in the same spot maybe, but use your legs to encourage that horse to move forward. If I'm asking a young horse to do this especially, and I feel him kind of stop or hesitate with his motion, that tells me that he's probably not as limber or not as loose or doesn't give as much as I would like him to give. I would prefer that motion keep carrying as I ask this horse to get into different positions, different shapes. Problem number two that may cause that same thing, same scenario, a horse stopping on you when you're asking him to make one of these moves, is simply that you're providing too much hand. So remember that horse goes where my hand goes. So if I'm asking this horse to move around and I'm drawing back hard maybe to my chest or my pants pockets, and that horse stops or doesn't carry forward, that's probably because I'm applying too much of a barrier here for his front end, and so I'm asking him to stop or asking him to slow down and don't really think of it. So you got to maintain the forward motion and maybe keep your hands in the right spot in order to get that to happen. Some other problems that may occur is maybe that the horse fights the bit. So the question may be, do I apply more pressure or do I simply stay where I need to be and keep asking this horse to do what I'm asking him to do? I definitely wouldn't fight him. If a young horse especially is being asked to do something that's not real natural, I don't think anybody's ever seen a horse in the pasture looking the opposite way and turning. So it's a very unnatural type of move. Then a young horse may be very sticky and stiff in that position. And so instead of fighting the face, and maybe I'm asking him to cross over I'll ask him here in just a second when I get back to you to cross to the left. Maybe I push my hands here and he stays over here like this. I'm just going to stay and hold this position and use my leg, my right leg, to tap that front end over, and when that front end crosses through, then let go. So just like we discussed in week one, the leg reinforces the response that my horse is going to give me. So if he doesn't move that front end, my leg's gonna move it, not my hand necessarily. Okay, so in all, getting that shoulder to move in those different positions in either a 2-track or maybe a little spin, all those things will help put some things together in terms of trying to get your horse in a tight spot around a barrel, or maybe trying to reposition in a reining spin, or a reining circle, or anything. It could go to a cow horse, a number of things. Okay, so here's a young horse that just started kind of learning how to be supple in all the pieces, and so Ryan's going to ask this horse to keep flexing back to the right here. She's using her leg to keep forward motion. And here in just a second, we're going to ask her to move back to the left. And when she moves to the left, you'll notice that her horse is going to maintain the same bend, the same arc that he has here. But the only thing that's really going to change is the position of her hand. And we'll see how the horse responds to that. One thing I want you to pay attention to as a viewer is to see what kind of reaction we get off the horse's front end. So right now, as we track to the right, you'll notice that the front legs are tracking left over right, left over right. So she's making a nice position, and the shoulders are moving forward with the motion that she's asking, with the shape that she's asking. So as we get some space here, Ryan, we'll get up here maybe about half a more circle, and we'll ask this horse to go to the left. A little sticky there. Keep asking, go ahead and ask to bend to the left. No, keep your position to the right like you were, but we're going to, I'm sorry, keep the bend to the right, but we're going to ask the horse to track off left. So here we see a little, that's okay, Ryan, keep going forward in the circle, I'll tell you again. So here we see a horse that a minute ago when we saw this horse go ahead and 2-track off, we kind of tightened up the rear end. Here we see a horse that's wanting to 2-track. So we're getting the hip and the shoulder to move all at the same time. So if you watch the front legs, when she asks the horse to track off, she uses her right leg, and you can see that the legs change, the horse's legs change. We start seeing the right leg crossing over in front of the left. But let's just go ahead and go straight again. Keep your circle, don't ask to bend, Ryan. But we also saw that the hip was moving off to the right, to the left too. So we see both ends moving right to the left, both the front and the rear leg is moving off. So we'll ask her to do it one more time. So we're going to keep the nose to the right, and we're going to change our hands and put our hands to the left. Use our left leg, and you see the hip and the front end tracking off to the left. Good, and release. Great beginning to what we want to do. So a little less advanced move than making that rear end stop and that front end to actually commit to walking over in the front end. But this is definitely a horse that's being soft and obedient. He's moving off and 2-tracking. When we get some more space out here, Ryan, what we want to do is let's try to see what happens when we kind of stop that rear end from moving so much and move the front end. So what she's going to do here is probably use her hands a little bit more back to her pants pockets. There we go. Good. Great, that's fine. We're seeing some good problems here. So she saw that stiffness. So go ahead and keep walking forward again until I tell you. So she just diagnosed a problem there. She asked this horse to go left. His response was to completely stop on her. So all she needs to do with the 2-year-old is just simply ask with her leg for a little more progression, a little more pace. And we're going to go back to this position again, keep the nose to the right, and then let's go ask to the 2-track off left and stop that forward motion a little bit more. There we go, good. That's fine. One little step to the left. She gets out and releases. That's good for the 2-year-old. So she's done a great job here of recognizing that she got about a half a step, a 1-step kind of move in the way she wanted, but she prevented her horse from being upset and getting upset here. So which is good. She didn't wait too long. Sometimes riders want to hold on too long. Let's go back left and try it to the other way, Ryan. Sometimes riders want to hold on a little bit too long and ask the horse too much. Remember that with especially a young horse, it's about baby steps. They've got to do little things before they can do big things. So let's ask the horse's nose to go to the left. And we're going to come around just a little bit more, maybe another half a circle, Ryan, and we're going to go left nose, but to the right. We're going to try to slow it down. Got it run out of room a little bit. Let's go back out here. We got some more room. And I want you to slow that front end down, or I want you to make the front end go to the right with that movement, not so much forward. So cross the body, good. Good, getting a little more step there. Still got the back end moving forward some. But as she starts putting this together, thanks Ryan, as she starts putting this together, it should start to add up to this horse. But the great thing she's doing with this young one is she's maintaining a quiet, good attitude. He wants to get a little bit frazzled in some spots, and she's soft-handed and relaxed enough with her cueing that he's staying pretty receptive to what she's asking the horse to do. So kind of piece it together a little bit at a time, and it'll work for you better. Last exercise I'll discuss with you that's kind of a fun one to think about, is especially for the cow horse guys, is kind of what is called an imaginary cow. And it doesn't matter what you do, it's just kind of a fun game to play. And so what I'll do is I'll pretend like you're on the cow side, and I'll just simply ask this horse to walk a straight line forward, to stop, left leg and back, left nose this way. I'll release my left leg, and the horse should come back to the left. There we go. And then back over here. Same thing across. Moving forward straight, I'll stop, draw back, nose to the right. Right leg is holding that shoulder there. He wants to fight me a little bit. Back up a step or two, let go right leg, nose comes through, back across. All this is just a little game to play with them, to see that you can get them in this position softly. Left leg, left nose, release the left leg, follow through with the nose, back to the other direction. Almost like you're working a flag or working a cow, and that just keeps a body position, those shoulders drawing back to you and not leaking forward. So that's going to help your stop as well. So anytime you pick up this rein, you want to feel those shoulders drawing back to you, not leaking forward. And anytime you release your leg, the horse should come through. Okay, so just like if I was doing this little deal here, walking around, the only thing that's keeping these shoulders moving forward or crossing over, or whatever I ask him to do, is my leg. So my leg's on right now. If I release this inside leg, he should stop and turn around. Stop and move that direction. My leg is what's creating that motion. And whenever I don't apply it or I release it, that's when the horse should stop and come back to me. So remember, use your leg. Remember to guide this shoulder with your hand, create barriers to make sure you're preventing too much forward motion. Use your leg to keep the horse from stopping, and it's kind of a check and balance system in order to get that right momentum that you want. As long as you piece it all together and are consistent in what you're doing, then you should definitely get somewhere in terms of progression. Remember that we've got to make sure we perfect the face, and we've got to make sure we perfect the shoulder before we ever move back here to start working the hip like we will next month. So keep practicing. Maybe those things will start to make sense. If they don't, come back and watch the video again, try to slow it down and go back and reapply.